A long while back, on the night in Texas when I got stalked, I said that I tried calling a few friends to see if anyone could come out and play before I decided to go bar hopping. Well, the friends I was referring to was actually just one person, another girl from the forum that lived in the area. She'd always pick me up at the airport, and if I wasn't staying at the nearby hotel, I'd usually stay at her house. I'm going to refer to her as the Goth. After all, she was always dressed in black, always visited the Gothic nightclubs, and listened to a similar genre of music. It's a fair way to describe her, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Well, on one of my final trips to E2K before setting out to Thailand, the Goth and I met up as usual. Only this time, she had a friend with her, yet another girl from the forum, Christine. She too was kinda gothy and every bit as impulsive and wacky as me. I could already tell it was gonna be a crazy weekend. Maybe because we all go through the same trials and tribulations throughout our transitions, is the reason most transgendered women, up until the point of SRS, seem to stick together. Dating can be hard as is, while dating as a trans can be 1,000 times more difficult. And dating as a pre-op can literally be impossible, so maybe that's another reason why a lot of us often paired up sexually as well. The reason dating can suck so much, no pun intended, is because if you're seriously looking to meet someone, beyond the typical worries, we also have this whole other mountain of issues to worry about. However, beyond the blatantly obvious reasons, I'm referring to a much deeper issue, one that you may not have thought of. Aside from hoping to find someone who could tolerate my condition, my greater fear was finding someone who simply wasn't tolerant of it, but who actually enjoyed it. There's a whole world of difference between the two. The last thing I wanted was to become the object of someone's fetish. In no way did I want to end up with someone who secretly jerked off to tranny porn, who would all the while be fantasizing about such things while being intimate with me. So not only did I not want the person to enjoy fooling around with me, I also wanted them to remain interested in who I was as an individual. But at the same time, I still wanted us to function as a normal couple in a normal relationship. It was an impossible situation because the one thing that separates friends from partners is sex. The issue was ultimately unavoidable. I wanted a person to fool around with me, but not like it. The whole concept of dating as a pre-op is all sorts of fucked up, and I do not recommend it. At least with the three of us being birds of the same feather, we did manage to have some drama-free flocking together. That is, until I asked Christine for her number. That bitch told me that she wasn't interested, that she only used me for sex. It was the first time I ever heard such a thing. Too bad the future truth of the matter would make her my next roommate, though, which couldn't have been more than a week after the artist left me. It seemed that a lot of the forum girls eventually ended up living together at some point or another. After all, we were the only real friends that each other had. And now, it was mine and Christine's turn. The hermit must have found it educational, to say the least. First he had me, and at the time, presentable government employee. Then he met the artist, a very attractive, worldly, wandering health nut trying to find her place. And now, he was going to meet Christine, the girl who of what little material possessions she owned, managed to bring with her an array of BDSM sexual torture devices. Christine really was crazy, but in a much more opposing aspect than I. She was heavily into bondage, pain, and torture, all that fetish stuff, which at the time kinda scared me. Still, she was a fun person to hang out with. At first, we shared my room, my bed, and everything else. She wasn't at all possessive. It was just the type of relationship I needed. Another difference between the artist and Christine concerned their views on transitioning. While the artist desperately wanted to find and get her life in order, Christine seemed a little more at ease with the slower pace of her change. She claimed to be a deconstructionist, a term she created to describe just how little she cared about society's rules concerning gender. She was rather androgynous, having really short hair, but at the same time was on hormones. Some days she dressed in girls' clothes, other days she dressed in clothes that either sex can wear. Then shortly after she moved in, I began getting all emotional over the loss of Bettina. It took me a while, but I eventually realized just how different my life had become without her around. I think I'll always suffer from that phrase, you never know what you have until it's gone. I think I started realizing it shortly after the artist left. I wasn't quite reacquainted with the mechanics of dating, nor was I ready to be single. At a time when most normal people would have taken a break from the constant relationships, I only seemed to shorten the distance between them. My SRS was only a few short months away, and I needed this type of social activity to keep me sane. Everything seemed to be going well between us, though her deconstructionist persona did often draw attention. She had the body of a girl, the voice of a girl, but the hair and clothes of not a girl. There's a term in the community, clocked by association, meaning just as it sounds. I was worried that people would see us together and then start to question me. Connecticut was now my home, and I rather enjoyed the clean social slate I'd been given. The next noteworthy thing to happen was, of course, something involving me spending another large sum of money. I was about to get one of those things in the mail that say you can get a free vacation if you sit through an hour-long seminar. Boy, was I naive. I thought maybe because I was so special that I'd been selected to sit through some political speech and get free vacations. It was just your typical timeshare gig. Sit there and let them try and sell it to you, and in return, they'll let you stay the weekend. I even brought Christine along for the trip. It was a nice outing, and to be honest, the concept wasn't all that bad. My SRS had since been paid for, and I was again allowed some spending leeway, so I said screw it and bought a unit in the Berkshires in northern Massachusetts, just at the bottom of Jiminy Peak. Christine and I were also smoking lots of weed at the time, but alas, we forgot to bring our paraphernalia. So to fix this, we took the shower curtain rod off the wall and used it as a pipe while turning the salt shaker lid into a bowl. The toker had to lie on the floor because it was so long, while the other person lit the weed from atop a chair. It was just some good old-fashioned high school style shit we were doing, but I didn't really care, considering I just spent over $5,000 on the damn place. I actually called Christine the other day to collect her memories of the event, at which point she reminded me of our first fight while there. See, she kinda wanted to fool around, but I wasn't in the mood, rather choosing to whine about Bettina. This obviously started an argument, which we'd then bring back to Connecticut with us. There was already a great deal of upheaval back at the house, caused by the hermit's rearranging of the roster. Macho Guy had finally moved out, and the hermit was replacing him with this wretched little bitch named Stacy. I guess the hermit's idea was to rent out every room in the house so that he could live the rest of the days in his basement for free. So Christine moved out of my room and into Macho Guy's, while Stacy got recovering drug addict girls. Toilet paper is to blame for the first rupture in our otherwise would-be peaceful coexistence. I'd just gotten home from work after a 4-hour battle to get up the snow-covered hill. I was just a little on edge from the stress of crying, so naturally, the first thing I did was make my way into the bathroom to clean up. And there was no toilet paper. I knew Christine kept a few rolls in her closet, so I went in and unknowingly took what was actually the last roll in the house. I hadn't been made aware that she'd gone out earlier and picked up this one and only remaining roll, but it nonetheless started another huge fight, this time a physical one, over toilet paper. It ended with the both of us on the floor, her grabbing me by the damn hair, which really hurts by the way, and me having her in a headlock. Every time I asked if she was ready to let go, she said, "Fuck you," in response. So, I did a half somersault and rolled her over, smashing the top of her head into the floor. This went on for a good half hour, and only came to a halt once I bit her. Then, it was off to online dating. I still had a few weeks until my departure from the country, so I created a profile on Yahoo Dating and listed myself in the lesbian section. The first response I got was actually from a couple. It was the guy's girlfriend who contacted me. She said that she'd never been with a woman before and was interested in experimenting. And despite my profile having nothing to do with what she and her boyfriend were asking, I, of course, entertained the idea and kept in touch with them via webcam and online messenger. Then one night she asked if I liked to party, to which I replied, of course, though my interpretation of the term was just a tad different from what she was referring to. I told her I was familiar with the act, thinking that she was referring to club drugs such as acid and ecstasy. However, to her, partying meant doing coke. Once I realized what exactly she was offering, I told her that I tried it once or twice while in college. So then over the webcam, she pulls out this little dish and blows a line with me watching. Without getting into too many details, I met up with them, bought a shit ton of booze, and then followed them back to their house where almost instantly the blow came out. The only problem arose once I got all hyper, after I kinda talked myself into a corner by hinting to them about my situation. The night ended well enough, however there were no sexual flavors exchanged. Looking back, I really don't know what the hell I was thinking in going there. Maybe I just wanted to see how far I could get before having to let out my secret, or maybe the coke enticed me just a little too much. Either way, it was the last time I ever saw them. About the only thing I got from the experience was learning how much I liked the powder. The next response to my ad was from this very attractive little blonde girl about my age from a town far away. She wanted to meet at a bar, and as soon as I arrived, she came out and met me at the parking lot. Apparently, this was one of her local hangouts, already filled with some of her closest friends. Things went really well at first. All her buddies loved me, and everyone seemed to be getting along perfectly. We were on the dance floor almost the entire time. She had this red scarf-like thing which she kept using to lasso my neck as we made out in front of everyone. And considering how well we were getting along, we naturally made our way back to her house for the after party, where I was kind of course to tell her about my junk. Man, did she ever flip out on me. She went berserk and started crying while cursing me off for making her look like an idiot in front of all her friends. I tried explaining to her that if she couldn't tell until I got into bed with her, then how would her friends have known? But she didn't care. She was so upset that she kicked me out at 3 a.m. while it was snowing. This is what I mean when I say that dating as a pre-op is pointless. Maybe she was just hell-bent on eating pussy and I disappointed her. Either way, it's still a sore memory. I think I was so upset by her actions that I might have even called up recovering drug addict girl to have her score me some more coke. I was getting far too nervous about leaving the country for the first time, alone, and to have my dick cut off. It was to be the beginning stages of an addiction which would ultimately undo all that I had worked for.